Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Road to Justice. This is the Atlanta stop. This is not supposed to be like a lecture, although we're all lawyers up here and we'd like to probably hear ourselves talk. Nothing would give us more pleasure than for you to interrupt at any time to argue with us, ask a question, take a different position, tell us about something that we're missing or that we're not thinking about. The reason that we're all here is because we care about our profession and we care about our clients, and we want to see what is the best version of plaintiff's law in the future. Before we get into the content, let me say, first of all, thank you very much to Supio. If you work for Supio, will you please raise your hand?
Good job.
Yeah, okay. Supio is the sponsor of this event. They have paid for everyone's food and drink. So if you like that, what do you want to say to them? Thank you. Yeah, okay. Normally people clap, but whatever. That's fine. Y'all are tough. That's fine. You're fair. My name is Josh Stanford. I am one of the two hosts of this podcast. The other host is Tommy Kirker. And, oh, look, he's not here. He has a 3-week-old baby. His name is Dean. He is very, very cute. Tommy is not leaving to come here to do this tonight, because he's a great dad and a great husband. And so he's home with his wife and his little kids. And I'm delighted for the chance to talk to these special guests by myself without Tommy. So we're going to talk tonight to Mike Werner. And I think a lot of you already know him. And to Natanya Brooks. And I think a lot of you already know her. But I'm really excited for this. Oh, there you go. You're more popular than free food and alcohol. Okay. And Mike is not at all. We also have a special guest named, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Natalie Kanani. See, I did. Who is running for State Senate District 14. Raise your hand if you live in District 14.
Most people don't know the district, so that's North Fulton, that's Atlanta, Santa Springs, Alpharetta, Johns Creek, and City of Roswell.
All right. So, she's a plaintiff's attorney. I'm telling you, in a lot of ways, she probably believes in a lot of the same things that you believe in about what our government should be doing for our people. And if you don't live there, she probably could spend money that you have. So I don't know, go meet her, see. As I said, my name is Josh Stanford. I've been a plaintiff's attorney for about 24 years. It will be 25 years tomorrow. Yeah, and thank you. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I started my practice in a small town that I grew up in called Russellville, Arkansas in 2001. I grew my practice into kind of a niche area that many of you are not going to have heard of called the Fair Labor Standards Act, or the FLSA. And I loved it. I got way into it. We were representing employees, helping people get paid overtime wages and minimum wages. It was a passion of mine. I loved it so much. My guess is I loved it about as much as many of you love motor vehicle accident law and injury law. Like, you feel like you are actually doing something good for the people that you represent. And that's how I felt, and I loved what I was doing. I was growing the country's largest wage and hour practice, and we reached that level in 2019. We filed more cases in federal court around the country than any other firm for 4 years. In early January of 2018, the U.S. Supreme Court decided a case called Epic Systems versus Lewis. And I saw it come across, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's too bad. You know, I don't like their rulings. This is how these people are, whatever. What it said was that you could put an arbitration agreement inside an employee handbook and that people could waive their class action rights. And I thought that was lame, but whatever. I kept building my practice and building my practice. I grew my team. We kept investing in our infrastructure. We got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then about a year and a half later, I noticed that we weren't getting the same returns from our business. And as I said, I loved what I was doing. I did not want to let it go. I mean, I really didn't want to let it go. And so for 3 more years, we pushed and we pushed and we did everything that we could possibly do to extract efficiencies out of our practice, to become more profitable, to help more people. But what was happening is that employers were taking the Epic Systems ruling and they were putting arbitration agreements into their handbooks. And the cases that had been valuable for us were losing value. And the margins eroded, and the margins eroded. And in October of 2022, I did like the hardest thing that I ever had to do as a lawyer, which is we shut the front door of the firm, meaning no new clients. We laid off 9 people. I'm not choked up, I'm allergized. Y'all are jerks. And we worked on the cases that we had, and I spent a year and a half trying to retool, thinking like, what was next for me? It was really, really hard. And I actually didn't know the answer. And like, I'm about to tell you that this was really dark and sad, and you can tell, like you can feel it. And it has a great ending, which is that I didn't like give up. I said, okay, well, what am I good at? Well, I'm good at client acquisition. I'm good at putting cases together that involve consumers. And I'm good at running large-scale dockets in federal court. And I took those skills and I completely pivoted. In fact, I started a new law firm with Tommy Kirker, who's not here because of the baby, and another lawyer. And we started doing consumer class actions. We started doing data breaches. We have grown that practice into the country's largest data breach and privacy practice in the US in a year and a half. And I'm really proud of that, but it's not because like we're awesome or whatever. It's just that we've like focused on what we're good at and pivoted and run towards the best way that we can help as many people as possible. And I'm telling you guys this story because I have had massive disruptions in my career. It was really hard to deal with what was happening, and I didn't want to believe it was real. And many of you in this room do not want to believe that disruption is coming to motor vehicle accident practice, but it is. And some of you know, if you know your numbers really well, you know that it's already here, like the change has already started. Now, if I was like one of these like gloom and doom guys, I could stand up here and tell you like, oh, on like July 1st, 2029, your average case cost to acquire a new motor vehicle case is going to be $5,500 or something. But no one knows what that's going to be like, and no one knows when the prices are going to hit certain levels or how many accidents are going to stop happening at a specific date. Like, we don't know the future. But there are some trends that are happening right now, which all of you need to be aware of. The number one trend, no, it's not the number one trend. The first trend that I'm going to talk about is private equity coming into the motor vehicle accident space. Has anyone here heard of Dudley DeBosier? Yeah, okay, so Dudley DeBosier is a giant firm in Louisiana. I have to read this next paragraph because it's so detailed and specific that I can't like tell it to you like off the top of my head. But 6 weeks ago, they closed a deal with Uplift Investors, which is a Connecticut-based PE, ex-Gridiron Capital principals work there. They spun off all their non-legal assets, which is case management, finance, HR, marketing, into a managed service organization, or MSO, called Orion Legal. And Uplift is a majority owner. And their explicit plan is to acquire PI firms across North America and roll them up under the same operational infrastructure. And you might think that's irrelevant to you, and it might be today, but it will not be forever because it's going to completely change the dynamics of the environment in which we are all working. That's not the only deal. The second largest injury firm in the United States, Lerner & Rowe, that's headquartered in Phoenix and is present in 7 states, recently did a deal with Atacor, which is similar to Orion, and there's an MSO, which is taking over a lot of their operations, and their goal is to go invest money. They're gonna go try to buy, if you own a firm, they're gonna try to buy you. If you work at a firm, they're gonna try to buy your employer's firm. The dynamics are changing, and what's interesting about the future, obviously, is that there's nothing that you can do to change like the big picture. Like, these things are happening, you can't stop them. But you can take control of your own life and your own career, and you can view yourself as the captain of your ship. And the reason that I'm brought these guests here, and I need to shut up as quickly as possible and ask them questions, is that the questions that you need to be asking yourself about how you run your business and how you run your career and how you help people need to change. And private equity coming into our space is one of those things. The next thing that's happening is an absolute massive uptrend in safety metrics safety mechanisms inside of vehicles. Automatic emergency braking is a feature that has reduced by 52% rear-end auto crashes from a 7-year period from 2015 looking forward to 2022, roughly. So basically cut rear-end accidents by 52% if that tech is in the cars, okay? There's a federal mandate that AEB has to be in all new passenger vehicles by 2029. They are projecting that it will save, at a minimum, 360 lives a year and 240,000 injuries, on top of what it's already done. There's a long-term projection by the about ADAS technologies that should prevent about 250,000 fatalities and 14.1 million non-fatal injuries over the next 30 years, which is 16% of all the crashes and 22% of all the deaths, which is great news if you drive a vehicle or you have teenagers who drive vehicles. If you run a business that's predicated on people getting injured at scale in automobiles, you should be a little bit uneasy. And this is already happening. And so I live in Arkansas. I got here last night and I drove around a little bit today. I saw like 5 Waymos. I didn't know you guys had Waymos here. When did you get them? 2 years ago. You know that Waymos are 91% less likely to cause an accident than a car driven by a human. And every 9 months, Waymo doubles the number of weekly rides that they provide. The number of dangerous car drivers is going down over time. That's going to affect you all. There's this other element that we don't really talk about because it's not inside of legal, but artificial general intelligence may be something that revolutionizes our legal practices within the next 2 to 8 years. I don't know. And I don't know how much time you spent thinking about it, but it is going to change everything that we do and how we do what we do. And I would encourage each of you all to hold your vision of what the future might look like pretty loosely because we just don't know. But these forces are compressing on our market simultaneously. There's fewer accidents. There's higher acquisition costs because of private equity. And this future and there's government regulation that is making cars safer, which is great. And then, as many of you know, there's government regulations that are trying to make sure that you're not able to get a fair outcome for your injured clients. And maybe you beat them now, maybe you beat them in a year, but these efforts are not going to go away. And they've made great inroads in a lot of states for their mission to make sure that there isn't justice through the court system. And it can happen here in Georgia. And I would just encourage each of you all to think, what is my career like if things change? Because things are going to change. They haven't always been the way that they are, and they're not going to stay like this forever. So tonight, what I wanted to do is bring 2 fantastic guests to talk about how they are helping injured people get great recoveries, and they're not using a business model that is predicated on things that can be, on systems that can be taken away by private equity coming and gobbling up motor vehicle accidents at scale and raising everyone's cost of acquisition, or by the safety measures that are happening in cars that are making it less likely for people to get in wrecks. So, without further ado, Natanya Brooks, I'm so glad you're here. I appreciate it very much. Here's what I wrote to describe you. You've got a mic, and you can tell me what's right or wrong.
I'll do that for you.
She swam at Georgia Tech. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, you can use the mic. She went to INRE Law School and started her career in civil defense. She had her own medical emergency and emergency surgery while pregnant, and it changed her life. And in 2018, she founded the Brooks Law Partners, and it started out with a lot of auto accidents, but she has grown that practice to include negligent security, medical malpractice, products cases, civil rights, and some class actions. Is that right?
Kind of.
Okay. And she is a living case study of how you can build a diversified plaintiff practice if you want to, and also how you can change your career, because she did that. Tell them what I got wrong.
No, that was great. Thank you for having me. And it's so nice to see so many people that I know. So thanks for coming and listening to this. I'm a huge fan of pivoting, and I've done it my whole life. I never thought I would be a lawyer. Though you got right that I was a swimmer, and I was a swim coach. And I was coaching swimming when I decided to apply to law school. It was 4 years after I had graduated. I never thought I would be an attorney. And then I was a defense attorney for 6 years. I did civil defense, and I never thought I would be a plaintiff's attorney. But then I had emergency surgery. I was in the hospital. It was the first time I ever dealt with really understanding what is pain and suffering. And then I just quickly decided I want to help people who have been injured because I know what it feels like. And then the most recent pivot that I made was tort reform hit. And it hit us really bad here. So, I mean, I'd like to know what's happening in Arkansas, but in Georgia, so premises liability that you read out, which was something I really cared about, safety on properties is now non-existent in Georgia. So who here knows that tort reform hit us last year? All right, and then who here knows that right now the Supreme Court is going to decide whether there are caps in Georgia in medical malpractice wrongful death cases? Who knows that? Anyone know that? So there's a lot of stuff going on right now that, you know, like you talked about, just in legislatively that we need to know about and in the court system. So when tort reform hit, then I expanded my practice. So it was Brooks Injury Law, and then I made it Brooks Law Partners. I have someone that I brought in that can do contract law, can do professional negligence. I'm meeting with someone, we're debating about doing real estate closings. So I expanded my practice to handle other areas of law. I don't want to. I really don't want to. I love representing injured people. But in this environment, in this legislative environment where our access to court and right to a jury trial really is in jeopardy every single session, right? Tomorrow is the last day of session. And I think that we're going to be okay this session. But, you know, every year from January to April, it's when something really major could happen. And the insurance companies are all working together. And they're in every single state. And so they're doing some really crazy bad stuff right now in California. They're in New York. And so, you know, they just move around from state to state. They'll be back here soon. So I do think that we need to always be thinking about what's next and how are we able to pivot and then fight like hell for a right to a jury. So get involved. And that's what I've been trying to do. I never thought I would form a 501c4 and be down at the Capitol lobbying, but that's what I did because I said I got to be involved. I got to understand how bills become a law and how do I stop certain bills and who do I need to know to have an impact because this is so important. So that's what I would say. Like, we do need to be ready to pivot. We can. Everyone here can pivot, but we need to really be fighting and understanding legislatively what's happening and be down at the Capitol. Like, we all care. We want accountability. We care about our clients. And so let's use our knowledge and our passion and get down. Like, we really can change the law. We truly can. This session, I saw it. I never had done this before, and we are able to literally make changes to laws that were coming down. So you just kind of get down there and you start meeting people and talking to people. So we need everybody. A lot of people are down there, they don't read the bills and they don't know what they're doing and they don't understand what's going to actually happen in court. We do. We are in court. We know what happens to real people. So we want to bring down families and share real stories and what families are struggling with, how long it takes them to get justice. And once real people share their stories, it's effective. And that's how we change the law. So I don't know if that answers your question, Josh.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. Thank you. Awesome. Mike Werner went to INRE Medical School and specialized in anesthesiology, and then he practiced medicine. You don't do that anymore because you're a lawyer. I was told today that you have a nickname.
I do.
Which is Money Mike. Is this true?
I don't know about that nickname.
Okay.
I have heard people say that, but I don't think it's
Mike has secured, or Warner Law has secured, some of the largest verdicts in Georgia history, $51.7 million, is that right? Yeah. Multiple $21 million trucking outcomes and a $13 million wrongful death. His most requested CLE topic is how to get 2 to 3 times the value other attorneys leave on the table, right?
That's
Okay. And his edge is that he actually understands medicine. Is that fair?
to a point.
All right.
To a point.
Tell him what I
If
got
you
wrong.
do-
Tell him what I got wrong.
No, it was pretty good.
Okay, mic up here then.
Oh, sorry, guys. It's funny. I took the LSAT before I took my anesthesia board exam. And, you think, oh, I'm going to practice medicine. I'm going to help all these people. And the dilemma I had was, I would take a lot of call. So I'd get called at midnight, 2 in the morning to put an epidural in. And I would always think, you know what? If I didn't put the epidural in, someone else would. I'm not really making a difference. And, you always think, oh, anesthesia is really important and it's dangerous and you have to be really good. The truth is, if you're a healthy individual, anesthesia is pretty safe. It's hard to really mess up doing anesthesia. That's why what you don't know is, all the anesthesiologists are reading books and playing on their phone and everything while you're asleep. But ultimately, much like Josh and Natanya, I wanted to make a difference, and I didn't feel like I was making a difference. And going to law school, it was probably the best decision I ever made in my life. People thought I was nuts. I was making decent money at the time. But I'll tell you, I never regretted it, never looked back. And I practiced medicine a little bit when I got out of law school. Actually, I didn't sleep much. I would do medicine about every day and then knock off and do a little bit of law. And then every year I did a little less medicine, a little more law. And about 3 or 4 years into it, I gave up medicine altogether. And again, best decision I ever made. People ask me, do I enjoy what we do? And we all make a pretty good living helping people. And very few people can say that. And I mean, what a better way to live a life is to get paid to help people.
That's awesome. Can I ask you a kind of a technical question?
Sure.
Because you understand the medicine that you're looking at in your cases and the injuries, how does that actually change what you're doing compared to what the rest of us are doing?
The biggest impact is, and I mean, I've been doing this forever, and I see more people doing it now, but let's say someone suffered a broken leg, a femur. Well, the femur is a big, thick bone, and what people don't realize, if you have a broken femur and they have to put a rod in it or however they want to fix it, it's not just the leg that's broken. You have damaged cartilage around the knee joint, around the hip. And if you're young, that means that, the leg is going to heal. And the defense expert, the doctor is going to say, oh, it healed perfectly. But what you need to realize is, what about the cartilage around the knee or the hip? Because most likely, and this is something I do in most of my cases, if not all, they're going to need a knee replacement or a hip replacement. And if they're young, that knee replacement or hip replacement is only going to last about 10 years. They'll wear it out. Think of, Bo Jackson? He had a hip replacement. It lasted 2 or 3 years. Why? Because he was young. He was pounding on it. When these doctors say, a hip replacement will last 20 years, well, they're thinking about the 75-year-old woman they put a hip in, and they're not going to do much on that hip. So, it won't wear out. But it's like a tire. The more you use it, the more it'll wear, and the quicker it'll wear.
Do you think that attorneys are missing things when they're looking at medical records because of their lack of training?
I don't know if they're missing something. I think they may not understand the significance it has. I mean, like the example I just gave, they'll read, they had a IM rod put into their femur and it was a broken femur. But what they don't acknowledge or understand is the mechanism of the injury is it's going to affect a joint above and the joint below.
Okay. When a case comes in your door, what is it that separates a case from your evaluation that I could get this resolved for $1 million, or no, this is one that I should push and I could try to get $10 million.
Well, I think you should always push and get $10 million.
Well, but sometimes you know you're not going to be able to,
Well,
right?
and if you know you can't, you can't.
Yeah.
But it goes back, I'm sure everyone in here has heard this joke. How do you settle a case for $5 million? Well, you start with a case that's worth 20. And you laugh.
Well, this is a tough crowd. You got 2 laughs. Do you all get it? You suck
I'm
as
not
lawyers.
funny.
That's why you
I'm
only
not
got $5
funny.
million. That's what he's saying. You attacked them. That's why they didn't laugh.
But it really is difficult to understand, what a case is worth until you get into it. And I mean, I'm fortunate enough where a lot of my cases I get from other lawyers, and they have a value, what they believe the case is worth. And then you dig in, you talking to the treating physician is critical. Because, I mean, a lot of these guys it used to be easy to talk to them. Now, I had to talk to a woman, she was a surgeon at Children's. And man, you can't even call them directly, you can't email them, you have to go through legal, you have to get permission. Sometimes they're gonna say, oh, we'll let you depose them, but you can't talk to them. I mean, it's not easy. And it's making it more and more difficult. But if you can find one good, let's say, general surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, whatever it may be, to run a case by, to really get a good feeling of the true value of the case, it is extremely helpful. The problem is a lot of these, like the younger orthopedic surgeons, they don't realize that, I'll fix a leg and 10 years later, they're gonna need a hip replacement. Why? They haven't had the patients long enough. They'll do a residency, they'll do the surgery, they never see the patient again. If they're a new orthopedic surgeon, they may see people coming back, but they don't realize, oh, this happens to everybody. It really is wild, the vast difference of opinions you'll get depending on the experience of the surgeon or whoever it may be.
Okay. Pass the mic to Natanya. Let me ask kind of a follow-up question around that. Do you have a system or a process in place when cases come in where you try to figure out what the target is or how to move them in the right direction?
I mean, I think we have a system in general. I really believe in having case management software, using AI, and doing things that free up the attorney's time to find out what the really valuable cases are. Because I think spending time with the clients and diving into the case is what you have to do to increase the value. So, I mean, I think the system more comes from being organized and being able to have a volume of cases, but also be able to have the time to dive in and do those analysis. I mean, every month we go through and I ask every attorney what is their top 5 cases and how are you adding value, and we talk about it. So we do a meeting in person every month. Top 5 cases, what are you doing to add value? A lot of times it's filing suit, getting experts. But I think you're not gonna get there and have the time to do that. A lot of us in here operate on a volume and have hundreds of cases, but you have to free yourself up to put the time in on those big cases and do the trial work. For example, when I decided I really wanted to try some high value cases, I wanted to try a wrongful death case, med mal case, I had to pull myself off of a lot of the everyday cases and of course hire partners who knew what they were doing, but I needed a smaller caseload and only a trial load so that I could put the time in to be able to work up the cases, getting to know all the witnesses, spending the time at everyone's house, talking to the doctors so that I could get a good trial result.
Yeah. Okay. When a case comes in and you see that there's potential value there, how is your early workup different if you are not clear that you can win on liability?
My answer might be unique because I like tough liability cases.
Okay.
So that's what I ask for. That's what a lot of people send me. That's kind of how I started. I always said, send me whatever case you think would be tough liability. I like high damages and tough liability. So I go all in on the tough liability. You have to.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really, if it's a case you're working up for trial, if liability is tough or not, I would put just as much into it. I wouldn't hold back and be worried that you could lose. It's going to be all or nothing. So I think almost you have to push harder.
And Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I was going to agree. You have to I'll agree on 2 things you said. If you have a question about liability, once you take the case, it is I believe, your responsibility, your duty to that client to not worry about, do I want to spend money on this expert? You have to go all in. because if you don't go all in, you don't believe in the case, you're not going to win it. Years ago, I'm a little bit older than you, but that's how I got my cases. I worked for a law firm, and they gave me cases that they had one trial lawyer there, and he didn't want to try the case because he didn't want to lose. So my first case was a wrongful death case where my client tested positive for marijuana, and he had been drinking, and he cut in front of a truck. Needless to say, he died. And I got I think there was a $100,000 offer, and we got, I don't remember, I think like $3 million. And then my next case was a brain injury case. It was against Conway Trucking. And our guy turned left in front of a Conway truck. It was at a red light. One of those where you're trying to clear the intersection. If you know, one side has a red light, or both have a red light, but both vehicles go through the intersection. And he gave me that case to try, actually tried that with me though, and we got a $12 million verdict. So I really do like the tough liability. That's what I started on. But yeah, you can't hate, excuse my language, half-ass anything. If you're gonna do it, you gotta do it right. And the other thing Natanya was talking about, which I agree, you gotta talk to the client. We have a client, and I think all of you have clients. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing okay, I'm doing good. And you're like, oh, you know, no problem. Dive into it, because this was, and I wish I could say I caught it, I didn't. Girl at my firm, Nola Jackson, caught it. She was talking to the client, and, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, but I have this numbness in my hands. You know, I can't, my whole hand gets numb, and I have this pain shooting down my leg. She's like, what? You're not fine. And she's like, oh, I think it's just carpal tunnel, and then I think this is just because, it's like, no. And, you know, a lot of these clients don't realize, you know, oh, if you have a herniated disc, and she actually attributed it to her shoulder, she didn't realize it was a herniated disc, that you're gonna have radiating pain down your arm. And, you know, it's your job as a lawyer to dig in. And I missed it. Fortunately, Nola, you know, caught it. And it sounds like, you know, you're all about it with clients too. You have to spend a lot of time talking to the clients and really understanding everything they're going through.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question, because if you all are willing to concede that you are getting, and I'm not like, you don't want to brag, but if you're willing to concede that you're getting better outcomes on cases than some other lawyers are, what's happening? Like, where are other lawyers leaving money on the table? It sounds like you're saying not spending enough time with the clients is one. I mean, it sounds like both of you all said that you need to talk to them more.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it depends on, I mean, there are so many great lawyers out there in Atlanta. I mean, I've litigated in a lot of states, and Georgia has some of the best lawyers. And not only best lawyers, but their groups. Everyone's willing to help one another, which I think is not only fascinating, but it's incredible. You go to Florida, and let me tell you, you have a plaintiff's lawyer that'll shoot another plaintiff's lawyer if they could get away with it to gain the business. So, I mean, Georgia really, GTLA, it's a great environment. But I think everyone's really busy. And sometimes, like Natanya mentioned, you have to cut your caseload to maximize the value of your cases. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with all that. And then you just have to try cases, because you're not going to get a verdict that's 10x unless you try the case. And I mean, my first trial, when I first switched sides over to the plaintiff side, I just told people, I want to get a trial, and what do you need help with? And then I said, I'll try it with you for free. So no one should be worried that you can't get a trial. It's hard. You get like one trial a year now. But I think just asking other people or bringing people into the case and working together, like Mike was saying, like we have, so many people in this room, we're all friends. All of us would try a case together, you know? So I think when you start trying cases, then you realize that the jury is with you. The jury cares about the client. And so you just have to get in there and spend the time and work together. I do think that working together, you know, kind of like building a trial team. Like my last trial case, I focused on damages. Another attorney focused on liability. Another attorney focused on appellate issues. So we built a team. We're all from different firms. Well, we put the team together so that we could get the highest value verdict for the client.
Okay, so that's like teamwork and trying to allocate resources correctly inside the trial system,
Yes.
right? But then it also sounds like you're saying just reps. You just go to court as much as you can to get better at it. So skill acquisition.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one thing that I didn't think about, but I think it holds true. The defense lawyers know which lawyers are going to try a case and which ones aren't.
Yeah, okay.
And if you're not going to be willing to try a case, they know, hey, this is the most we're ever going to pay you. And then that lawyer is going to have to make the decision. Am I going to try the case? Am I going to take the settlement? Or am I going to refer it to Ms. Brooks, who will try it for me? Unfortunately, defense lawyers know this, and they'll use it to their advantage. If you try a case, I think it's beneficial, not only on that case, but all future cases.
If you had a crystal ball and you could look and see the future, what happens to PI lawyers 10 years from now? Like, what are we doing? What's happening with our practices?
I think they're going to be less and less. People are going to get weeded out just for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Competition is nuts now. I mean, I practiced 20 years ago, and it was a lot easier getting cases. Now, I mean, you gotta really fight. The PE, it used to be you turn on the TV and you see the normal law advertisements, things like that. Now, there are groups that all they do, they're not even law firms, they advertise, hey, if you have injured, call us and we'll send you to a lawyer. I mean, it's just, you can't compete. So in 10 years, I think there'll be a lot more criminal defense lawyers.
Okay, so criminal, well, no, y'all are laughing, but Natanya's point was pivots are not necessarily bad, and if one type of case dries up, like criminal defense work needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What are some other case types that you see as potentially growing?
I think product liability. It's a tough area, it's expensive, but with all we were talking about Waymos earlier, I mean, they're not fail-proof. They're not. And you're going to have to, start going after the manufacturers and things like that.
Okay. Natanya, you were saying that you've already started to look into some other practice areas.
Right.
What does the world look like to you in 8 to 10 years? Like, what happens to these happy plaintiffs' lawyers that are so rich and lazy right now?
We're gonna have to learn other skills, but if we don't, we're bored anyway. Like, we all want to learn, that's how we got here. So it's fun, right? There's a lot of other things going on. I mean, there were just in the last 2 months, there were 2 landmark cases against Meta in 2 different states. So I do think there are going to be big new areas of law where you're going after Meta for a products case. And so I do think that, I mean, unfortunately, everyone's always getting hurt. There's always a problem. There's always a safety that needs to be protected. So I wish it wasn't so. Like, I'm totally fine if cars come in that are safer and there's never another car wreck. I will be so happy.
Yeah, great world.
Sure.
Right, but there's definitely going to be other harms that come in. So if it's something online and our kids are getting depressed and anxiety, and there's going to be other causes of action that crop up, and we're going to be able to seek, other bad actors.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't think that we take much time to think about how it came to be that we are all aware that when you've been in an automobile accident and you get hurt, you can and should call a lawyer. That exists because of lawyer advertising. Like, people were getting in wrecks for a long time and not calling lawyers. And so insurance companies were paying $500 here, $1,000 here. I mean, that was back when $1,000 was a lot of money. But it actually is, it may be the case that it is incumbent on the next generation of lawyers to train their potential clients on the fact that they have the opportunity to access justice through the system for the types of harms that you're talking about. Harms that, social media harms, or these things that are just kind of evolving right now, right?
And what's interesting, I didn't really think about this, but you're talking about safety in cars, and I can't think of that, but it'll break before it hits the car in front of them.
They have the bumper protection.
And if you look back in the 50s and 60s, and then it was the lawyers that really pushed the seatbelts, then the airbags, and then they have traction control on cars, and that started, they had it out there, and Porsche had, it was a California case, and I was a big racer then, but a Carrera GT that didn't have it. And it was, in 2005, a $400,000 car, and they're saying, wait, you build a $400,000 car and you didn't put traction control in it while you have traction control in all these other cars? And there was a verdict in that. So now all the car manufacturers started putting traction control in cars. So, we really, while people say, who don't really know us, oh, we want car wrecks, we don't. And in fact, the big changes that we've had in the automobile industry, safety-wise, airbags, seatbelts, it is because of the trial lawyers, because of product liability. People got injured and they said, wait a minute, all you had to do to prevent this injury was put a seatbelt in, create an airbag, put in traction control. So really, it's not like Natanya said, it's not a bad thing that less and less people are getting injured. In fact, I think we can all look around and say, hey, we're all part of that solution, and we helped, less and less people get injured because of it.
Yeah.
And people don't think like that. They think, oh, trial lawyers, they want people to get injured, and when in reality, we've brought about the change that made driving safer.
Yeah. There is going to be opportunity for those of us who want to think outside the box and think about new ways to pursue justice for our clients, to interact with our clients, as you were saying, and figure out just like what's going on in people's lives. Like, pay attention. What is hurting people? And I would encourage all of us, as you think about your clients and what's happening in their lives, to have conversations to find out, like, actually, are there ways to help them that you don't currently know about? And I don't mean just like existing claims, but like there are injuries that are, some of the really technical stuff that you're talking about. You're saying like people were resolving broken bone cases for a certain dollar amount. They didn't really even understand the medicine behind the fact that later they were going to have future injury or future surgeries because of those past injuries, right?
Sure, but a lot of orthopedic surgeons, like the defense will have a million experts saying that isn't true. And it's not that, maybe they are paid whores and they'll say whatever you give them money to, but I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they just don't realize they haven't been doing it long enough, or they don't specialize in trauma, they don't see it.
Shifting gears slightly, how is it, and I think both of you will probably have different answers, but how is it that you identify a case when it comes in that it might have higher value? Like, is it because you yourself are spending time on it, or is it operational inside your firm? There are other people?
For us, and I don't know how Natanya works, but it sounds like very similar. All the lawyers sort of roundtable each case, and it's a group effort. One person will notice something that I don't notice, and I'll make a couple comments that someone else doesn't notice, and it's really important to put different eyes on the case. And everyone will have a different point of view, and it's amazing. It's not just that one view that makes it worth the extra value, but combined, and you don't know what the jury will hold on to. Maybe today it's the future medicals. Maybe on the next day they ignore the future medicals, but they see how it impacted the family. You don't know, but it's important that you get different views on that case, and then in trial you extrapolate all of those views and have the jury understand it.
Yeah. Natanya, do you have any color to add to that, or a different answer?
I trust my intake a lot. So I have one attorney in intake, but 3 other people that aren't attorneys. They know people. They're just like jurors. They know who's nice, they know who's kind to them, they know who's mean. And if I'm on the fence, like taking a case, they'll say, this is an amazing person. And I know, okay, the jury will go out of their way to give a big verdict to someone that they care about.
100%.
And they will go out of their way to give you a bad verdict if the person is mean. So if someone gets on the phone and, I mean, we'll say this seems like a great case, but this person was really rude to intake, then a lot of times we'll say we're not going to take it. So I really care how the client is treating a person and if they are like actually a good person. So I'm going outside of course we do roundtables, of course we have multiple attorneys on every case and we talk about it, but I'm also looking at intake and my paralegals. If anybody is rude to a paralegal at my firm, we will get out of that case immediately. And I always say, I worked on the defense side, we couldn't get out of a case. Like you had to deal with it, but on the plaintiff side, we decide who our clients are. So if someone is gonna be rude to anybody on our team, then we don't wanna represent them, it's not a good fit. So I'm really looking at the type of person that we're working at, and then I'm looking at permanency. You know, if someone is gonna be dealing with something the rest of their life, then every single day, the rest of their life, every single second, they're in pain. And that's a really big deal. So it could be a worse injury, but they get better and they're able to live a normal life. But if they are dealing with something, even if it's a nagging thing, it's like every single day they have to think about something. Every single day they're held back. Every single day the rest of their life, they're gonna be affected in some way. Then that is also what makes the case really valuable to me.
Okay. I'll stay with you for just a second. I know you mentioned that the law changed around premises liability. You used to like those cases, you used to do them. You don't take them anymore, right? Okay. Are there any cases besides those that you're saying no to now that 5 years ago you would have taken?
I am being very careful about med mals right now. Very careful. It's crazy to say that. So what is up in the Supreme Court right now, it could cap the wrongful death claim on a med mal to $350,000, the value of a life in only a med mal case, which seems crazy. So if you got hit by a car and you passed away, then your life is going to be valued a different way than if you're in a med mal. So I'm gonna ask, is the person still alive? What are the injuries? If it's a death, then it could be worth less. And it's just crazy policy, because why is a doctor gonna keep you alive? Because if you end up passing away, that's just $350,000 they can just add as a line item. Okay, well, 10 people didn't make it. Well, that's a lot better than one person who ended up hanging on and they're on life support and they're quadriplegic. Well, that case could be a case I don't want to deal with, so might as well just let them pass away. I mean, that's the policy. It's crazy. But, I'm constantly I'm reading the appellate decisions, I'm looking what's going on in the Supreme Court, and so those would be cases right now where I would ask a lot more questions than I would have even last year.
Okay.
And in that scenario, it's crazy, but I was, in 2005, they passed similar laws, and it is insane how heartless the defense firms and the insurance companies, they will literally say, hey, drag it out because that individual will most likely die in the end. And it's heartless, but that's the way they think. Just crazy.
That's awful. Are there any cases that you're saying no to these days that you were saying yes to in the past?
I did a lot of bad faith. So for those who don't know, when people say, hey, don't worry, I'm fully insured, as you probably know from experience, what that means is, hey, don't worry, I only have $25,000 of insurance, which is a state minimum. And it's been that way for 30 years. In the past, if I had a catastrophically injured client and there was only $25,000 of insurance, I would take it and I'd say, there's a good chance that the insurance company will screw up and we'll get them in bad faith. Now, bad faith is nearly dead. If you have catastrophic injuries, $25,000 of insurance, and I did this before I learned bad faith way back when, I would tell the client, look, you don't need a lawyer for this. They're going to pay you. And I think I'm going to see, we have a couple of cases. We have one the Georgia Supreme Court just took, and we have two more that we're trying to get the Georgia Supreme Court to take. But the appellate courts right now are very down on bad faith. So if you have a catastrophically injured client and minimal limits, I don't know at this point if I'll say I'm not going to take it because I sort of want to see what the Supreme Court is saying, but I don't give them much hope like I used to.
You guys have been a great audience. I'm going to ask them just one more question, but I also would like to ask this question of you guys as well before we wrap up. But whatever you say, I'm going to try to repeat it back to you because obviously we don't have a mic for you guys. Like we don't even have a mic for all of us up here. Are there any claims that are coming in these days that you didn't used to see? New types of a type of case that keeps coming in over and over, or anything that's like you're like, oh wow, we didn't really have this 3 years ago, and now I kind of see this all the time.
I don't know about 3 years, and I think Natanya would agree, but in the last 5, I think the Amazon cases, the Lyft and Uber cases, DoorDash, things like that.
Yeah.
And that is personal abuse inside those rides, or just the fact that people are getting in wrecks in those commercial vehicles?
It does not take much for anyone to drive for Lyft or Uber or DoorDash. I mean, you would be appalled at some of even Amazon, some of the driving records we see once they get in a wreck.
Natanya, what about you? Do you see any trends, any new cases that are coming through?
Pharmaceutical stuff. So, I mean, pharmaceutical companies, they just want to come out with the latest, greatest thing that seems too good to be true. I mean, Ozempic, right? So it comes out and it's working and it seems too good to be true. Well, now, I mean, people's stomachs are literally getting paralyzed. There were a bunch of deaths and they tightened up some of the warnings and it's gotten better. But, there's always something that's coming out from the pharmaceutical companies that's not tested and not vetted and just going out to consumers before everyone knows the effects that it's going to have on real people. So, I mean, I think that's just going to continue.
Yeah.
Are you doing mass torts and that type of stuff?
Yes, so there is an MDL, like for, a bunch of different Ozempic ones.
No, I knew they had. I didn't know if your firm was starting to do them.
Yes, because again, you got to pivot and you got to see what's going on, especially if it's something you care about.
And so are you handling those cases inside the MDL, or are you just signing them and working with the lead counsel?
I'm working with a friend.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Which is kind of like what your whole business is, right? You work with other lawyers all the time.
Yes, and especially we get to choose who we work with. So, I mean, if there's a really good person doing awesome stuff that has a leadership position in an MDL and this is their specialty, then yeah, I want to work with them. So I do think there's a lot of chances to team up and work together.
Yeah. Does anyone in the audience want to say, like, at your own practice, a type of case that's come in?
That wasn't necessarily what I thought. We were just taking questions.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
So I was going to ask, speaking about the Supreme Court, it's not just the legislators right now who have really been making these changes and policy changes. We all talked a little bit about how fentanyl caps are currently up at the Georgia Supreme Court, but they've been reversing several major plaintiff verdicts over the last several months, and that there's actually something it could potentially do about it at the polls this year.
Yeah.
Let me repeat what she said just so everyone can hear. Actually, it was a lot of words. Let me try to get this right. There are political changes afoot, right? And you're encouraging people to go get involved?
Yeah, so Taylor's right. There have been a bunch of huge verdicts that have been overturned. So
Gone.
A bunch of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you think that there's a highly capable judge, there are 12 jurors that unanimously agree on something, and it's a big verdict for a reason. The defendant was a bad actor, a slumlord, whatever it was, and that this client, the family, is deserving, and they've been going through this for 5 years, and they get a verdict, and then it goes to the Court of Appeals, and then the Court of Appeals, they're throwing back the verdict. And this is happening in a number of big cases where there's a large verdict, and it's just kind of like, hey, we're not good with these large verdicts anymore. The verdict is large for a reason, because the jury heard all of the facts and was disgusted by whatever the defendant did. And so this is actually very rare in Georgia to where when we have elections coming up, you can actually vote for Court of Appeals and Supreme Court judges. Typically, no one opposes them. They just stay on the bench. They're appointed and then they stay there in the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. But because a lot of verdicts are being thrown back and because people aren't happy with that, there are attorneys that are running for that position, and now you get to vote for those attorneys, and that really has never happened in Georgia.
Yeah, and to expand on that, and this could be my conspiracy theorist speaking, but
Oh, that's welcome here. I mean, I'm literally trying to predict the future, so go nuts.
obviously the legislative branch passed tort reform. Governor Kemp really wants tort reform. And what I'm seeing, we have separation of powers for a reason. But for whatever reason, I'm seeing the Court of Appeals sort of ignoring the precedent and what the law's been over the past 20, 30, 40 years, and just making stuff up to get the result they want, whether it's bad faith or overturning verdicts. 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, we didn't have this problem. And I question the motives, I question everything, but the Court of Appeals has really done a handstand on where they were just a few years ago. And whether it's because of Governor Kemp, tort reform, whether they want to get appointed, I don't know. But it is difficult to ignore.
Are there opportunities that lawyers are missing to get cases into federal court at the beginning instead of state court in order to prevent that?
Personally, I would rather be in state court and Georgia Court of Appeals than the 11th Circuit, but that's my personal opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, you guys have been great. Did anyone want to ask any questions other than Taylor or volunteer anything? Yes.
I know you said lobbying is something that makes a big difference.
Yes.
Do you have to be licensed, or could a lawyer involve non-attorneys within their practice that care about obviously the same thing you do to go and try to make those changes alongside you?
Yeah.
So Courtney asked if there are restrictions on who can lobby, or if you have to have a license to do it in some way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I love this question. So to be a lobbyist, you should be a professional. But when we're saying you want to lobby, you want to go down to the Capitol and you want to meet with different legislators, absolutely not. You don't have to be an attorney. You don't have to have ever done it before. Well, I brought my entire office down there. And I mean, Taylor was one of the best people out of everybody, and she stay involved, and she'll go down there when I'm not down there. We had a couple paralegals that, they really care about their clients, and they're sharing their client stories, and they're also taking the clients down there. So we are bringing clients. We have a couple clients who we brought down there the first few times just, with them and with us, but now the clients are going on their own, and they're getting to know different legislators and talking to them and wanting to find out more. So if you're interested, please stay in touch. But no, you do not have to be an attorney, and you could be a client, you could be a paralegal, you can be anybody in the industry that cares, and it's super easy and fun. So if you want to try it, please stay in touch. The 501c4 that I started is called Voices of Families for Justice with 2 other trial attorneys. And so our goal is to literally do that and to bring everyone down there who cares. And we want to have just as many attorney advocates or just as many non-attorney advocates as attorney advocates, because attorneys start talking and everyone tunes out. But when there's, a family down there and someone who really cares and shares their story, then that's when the legislators perk up.
Awesome. I appreciate everyone's attention tonight. It's been great to have you all here. This is a great conversation. You guys are super talented lawyers. You deserve all the success that you're having, and I appreciate you being willing to share your evening with us. Before I go, I want to say that I really like talking about the future and change and what's possible with anyone who wants to talk about it. One of the reasons that we wanted to partner with Supio for this tour is that they care about the same things that we care about, which is good outcomes for the clients that you have and a good experience for the people who are working for you. And so I just want to say once again, thanks to Supio for putting this evening together for us and being here. If you haven't had a chance to talk to them, please do. find George, wish him a happy birthday, and if you're a lawyer that gets big verdicts, ask him if he's the type of person that could save you in taxes. Everyone, give Mike and Natanya a round of applause. Thank you very much.